Welcome back to the Your Golf Performance Podcast. We've got a return guest today, Mark Govier. He's the high-performance golf coach at Altus Performance in Dallas, Texas. One of the busiest online coaches in the world. We're going to have a bit of a chat today. We've sort of picked out maybe 10 little discussion topics, how to help a junior golfer or any golfer for that matter become the best they can be or, try to make it on the pro circuit. Mark, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, appreciate you having me back on here. Looking forward to having a chat.
And it's good that we got our diaries aligned the first
Look
time.
at that.
Look at that. Oh, and our hats are all aligned. For anyone that's listening, go and have a look at the YouTube video or the socials. We've both got our matching Amen Corner Masters hats on. So
Exactly.
That person that gave me shit feedback for only ever talking about the Masters, this episode's for you. No idea.
How dare you?
Is.
How can you ever go with someone but the Masters and be a golfer? Come on.
How are you, mate? What's new in your world? Last time we spoke, you were back in the UK and you were pretty much just coaching online. Mm-hmm. You've made the switch back to the US.
Yeah, I came back here. I was about 11 months back home. Like when I went back to Wales, basically was coaching online. I was doing a little bit of in-person coaching, but generally online. Had the Olympics with the time I went back there, so it was a great experience. But then decided we wanted to come back to the States, and Altus were very kindly kept me to come back. So it was perfect. It worked great. I managed to come back out here, and it's sort of like plug and play, back into the same environment with all the guys at Altus, same area in Texas. Kids go back to the same school. So yeah, it was a pretty seamless transition back into my old role.
Was it a weather thing or a quality of what made you move back?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. It's the weather definitely makes it different, but I think after having time in both places, and they're both fantastic, they're just different. Just career-wise, it felt like too early to not be in this environment. I think I put a lot of work in to get to the stage where I was starting to work with some really good players and having some cool opportunities, like I said, going to the Olympics and coaching and those sort of things, and then working with more pros and elite juniors and seeing their development. And then I think after a bit of time away, I was like, my gosh, I started that journey and it just felt like it was just too soon to stop and give it up. So after some, sort of soul searching and discussions with myself and Sarah and, the kids, we were like, okay, let's get back over there. We love our life here as well. We've got a great group of friends here, good community, and obviously built up a pretty sort of, good balance of players out here as well. So it was just a pretty easy decision to make in the long run.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we've, I guess, come up with some good topics to sort of discuss, and it might be a sore point for a few people that are listening in. There might be some parents or some kids or whatever that are listening in, or even your regular amateur golfer that kind of is listening and wants to be the best golfer or version of themselves. Yeah. So, mate, you know what? I think one of the first things I want to talk about is love of the game. So there are definitely kids or some people that are playing and I don't know what you were like as a kid, but a lot of the guests that I come on here and their coaches or their players, they were utterly obsessed with the game. So if they weren't playing, they were reading a magazine or they were chipping. I only had a conversation last night with one of my assistant pros. I used to chip balls at my parents' house from the back lounge room to the front lounge room, 100%. Across a little bar area, smashing lights and
100%.
So would you agree on that they've got to be utterly obsessed?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I remember when I was a kid, my mum would contest this, is that we would chip in the lounge. My dad would love golf as well, and we'd be out there, and I was literally taking divots out of the carpet. We had to stick them back down. We'd put through windows. We had holes in ceilings, but it was any opportunity where we could practice and have fun. I think that's a big part of it, and there's no doubt about it. It's the parent has an important role in driving the junior, but I do feel like it's got to come from within to really push on to the next level, and you've got to have that love of it. And that's why we all get into it originally, don't we? We don't necessarily immediately think, I want to become a D1 golfer, I want to become a pro. We get into it because we love it and we love competing and we love the camaraderie we get with our friends and the challenge that can be within it. And that, again, like you said earlier on, there's the amateur golfer And he's, he or she is having the same challenge. It's just different to maybe the ones that are trying to go on and win majors. But we're all going through the same struggles, and you've got to have that love and passion, just passion for it, because it's a tough game, and if you don't love it, it's easier just to put it down and leave it there.
Do you find, obviously you work with a lot of high end or, high level junior golfers, you're going to have a mixture of kids that are obsessed and kids that maybe don't hate it. Maybe they're trying to help, please mum and dad. Have you found a way as a coach to try to tap into the individual to find something that they love about it and sort of push it? I have some kids that will come to me and talk about, Marco, is it Marco Penge? You know that?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And this kid the other day said, oh, that movement felt like this. And I'm like, wow. Like, that's when I know a kid who, this guy, okay, he's well known, but he's not very well known.
Oh, no,
and then I've had other kids where I mention Scotty Scheffler or Jordan Spieth and they don't know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So have you found a way to tap into a kid that, is there a way you could give advice to parents that, maybe the kid doesn't love it, but they've got a bit of talent?
Yeah, I think like everyone's on a different journey, and certainly you do have kids. Like I've got 6, 7 year olds that are literally, they are so obsessed by it. They watch the PJ Tour, they watch the Live Tour, they know the players, which is crazy to think at that age. Their knowledge, they know about the golf companies, they know about the brands. They really are immersed into it. And then I've got other kids that are maybe, like you said, 11, 12-year-old, really good players, but they're just doing it more because, they enjoy doing it. And their parents obviously a big part of driving that. We all want our kids to do as best we can, but you've just got to treat it as an individual. The key thing for me is like, I've got to make the time that they have with me quality. I'm sort of a little bit out of control what they do when they're not with me, because, there's lots of other outside influences going to affect how they're going to be enjoying the game. But certainly the time that they have with me, I need to adapt to every child in front of me, whether it's more gameplay and making it more fun and challenging. Some players like the technical. So you have to be pretty adaptable as a coach, because if you go for the one-size-fits-all approach, it's not always going to work out.
No, I like that. We're welcoming a new partner to the Your Golf Performance podcast. This will be a performance analytics partner, Circles, or Draw More Circles as you may know them. The ultimate tool for tracking your golf progress. Whether you're a junior golfer, college player or coach, the everyday club golfer, or a golf professional, Draw More Circles allows you to easily track and analyze your performance like never before. With their innovative performance analytics, you get insights into your game that go far beyond just the scorecard. From strokes gain metrics to detailed reports on every aspect of your play, you can pinpoint exactly where to focus your practice to improve faster. One of the best features that I've found with Circles is the course management tool, which will take your physical data to help you navigate around the course smarter. They're actually taking your stats that you've entered into the system and helping you strategically play a better game of golf. Plus, it's perfect for coaches who want to keep track of their players' development and offer data-driven advice. If you can't measure it, you're guessing. The best part is that as you are one of my listeners, you'll get exclusive access to their services through our partnership. These prices are too hot to mention, and I'll need you to email me. My email address is brentdalegolf@gmail.com, or feel free to message me on Instagram @BrentDaleGolf. We welcome Circles to the team. All right, moving on. Quality coaching and fundamentals. How important are those? Very, but yeah.
Yeah, very. I mean, I think the quality of the coach is so many. Like, I think there's a big difference between a coach and a teacher, isn't it? And there's a teacher who's giving information, and maybe at the beginning level, you're teaching. You're teaching the grip, you're teaching the stance, the ball position, the posture, the fundamentals, and it's very much like relaying information. But then as you move along and the player gets more skilled, and now you're coaching, a bit like you said earlier on, is, well, now the player is, I've got to try to get this player sort of excited. I've got to make them enjoy it. It's got to make it resonate. I've got to also bounce off them and get their interaction as a player. So I think the big thing is as a coach is you have to be able to manage the player as well as having great technical knowledge. And there's so many great, like, people who've got every certificate in the world who not necessarily great coaches. And there's other players then, or other coaches that are, not necessarily, might not have all the qualifications, but they're just great at getting results. They're very good at getting to the player and getting them to understand and getting things to resonate. So I think adaptability is a big part of becoming a great coach, and setting, yes, great foundations, great fundamentals. We know that, we just talked about that's a big part of it. But we've also got to make sure they're putting quality into what they do away from it, how they're practicing, how they're looking after eating and sleeping, what they're doing, like for their prop preparation, their psychology on the golf course. There's so many different facets to it. So, yes, there's the foundation, the teaching, but the coaching parts are the really bit that takes it to the next level.
And like, are you very strict with, say you reference 6 and 7 year olds and all that sort of stuff? Are you pretty strict with how they got to hold the club, how they got to grip it, and I know it's a balancing act, right? Because some camps will say, no, just get them moving and then fix all that stuff later.
I get it.
Where do you sort of sit with that, or is it student by student?
Yeah, I think I'm quite hard on creating great foundations. That's just the way I would do it. My argument for the parents would be, as much as I want this kid to play well in the next few weeks, I don't want them to be shackled by technical issues that are going to catch up with them down the line, or they're going to have injuries when they're 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, when they've had a few 100,000 reps and they've worked around that poor motion. So yes, for me personally, I would be pretty heavy on getting the technical things as good as possible. And that might be slowly you're doing that, just gradually moving it around. And when you look back at old videos, I always love looking back at the old videos. It's amazing how that development comes, but it seems so natural and organic rather than maybe like an overnight change the whole thing, because they've still got to go play golf. They still want to enjoy it. So, but for me, I would be very much focus on real quality fundamentals just to set them up for the long term.
Yeah. I always feel like when I was younger, like a younger coach, I always thought it had to be about the swing and we've got to do this and just get them moving. And okay, their grip's not perfect, but we can fix that later. And, I'm getting more and more younger kids now coming for private lessons. And years ago, I would have felt bad where I just spent 30 or 60 minutes working on the grip.
Yeah.
But now I don't care. It's like, you're paying me because you want your kid to get better, and I can't have them come in with this grip that's 3 inches apart and, super strong, and, they're just that kind of sets the whole, I want them standing well and I want them holding it well.
Yeah.
So that it sort of gets that domino effect in the right order, not incorrect somewhere else, right?
Yeah, and I think you're right on that. Like I would say, anything's on the table if we can make it work, it's repeatable, and it's not going to cause injury. So if you can show me you can do all those things, it's all about creating matchups, isn't it? We know that.
Yeah.
But if you're hitting a hard left and you've got every knuckle showing and your right hand's underneath your fingernails are showing up to your face, and you're doing that consistently, well, alarm bells are ringing, and we need to make that adjustment at that point. So, if you're hitting knuckle draws and it's all under control, well, okay, we can work around certain things.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, athletic development. What's where do you stand with this? Is it part of the program there at Altus?
Yeah. We sort of have trainers that we outsource we send our kids to, or our college golfers, pros, whatever it is. We like them to do it. I think it's an important part. I like kids to play multiple sports. I think that's a key part of it that helps improve their athletic ability. I think too many kids get pigeonholed into specialization at a very young age. Again, like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. I think that's too young. I think they should be playing lots of sports for a long time, because it's definitely, it's been shown, isn't it, by evidence and studies that they are better athletes by doing that. So I think that you can get a lot from just allowing your kid to do multiple sports. And then once they get to high school and they're playing varsity stuff, okay, well, at that point, you realistically need to be specializing down to 1 or 2 sports at the maximum. Yeah. And then I think working with trainers, yes, if they're good and they know what they're doing and they're specialists in development of children or whatever it may be, or it's college golfers, etc. You need to have someone who really knows their expertise and it's golf specific. Then, without a doubt, athletic, training is superb for their development, for their power, for their mobility, for the ability to avoid injuries, all those things we talked about earlier on.
Do you guys do group coaching for the younger ones, or is it a lot more? Oh, you do? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have a foundation level, but it's not foundation. I mean, if these kids are in foundation level, are probably playing US kids and shooting in the 70s already. So I would say it's far from foundation, but I suppose within our program, we would class that as a foundation a lot of the time because of their age. And then once they get to the Aspire, which is the next level up, I mean, those kids are nigh on shooting par or very close to it. And then we have the D1 program, which is the program above it, which is then preparing them more for some grade 8, like 13 years old into high school, to prepare them for the opportunities to go into college golf. And at that point, that would be covering lots of skill work. Yes, there's some form, but it's mainly skill work, practice methods, college readiness, sports psychology, planning and mapping golf courses. So it goes a little bit more into the softer skills once they go to those levels.
And with your earlier, like your foundation and that, is it just learning skills, or is it like combining, like with our program, we may have 8 kids, like young kids in the beginner program, 4 stations for hitting, and then 4 stations where they're jumping and spinning and balance beams and that sort of stuff. Do you have that sort of stuff incorporated into it?
Yeah, I mean, we would have like a warm-ups, and then we wouldn't necessarily always have that. We have done it in the past, but I would be more golf focused. So like you said, it might be form stations first, so starting with like a form station, whether that's a wedge station, an incline plane, making sure we do the form stuff well, sprays, landing spot stuff, and then from there we then maybe go into skills. So we play, like $30 bank is like a yardage test that we play, or we do a TrackMan combine test at certain yardages. Then we might go on to like a rat race, like a gauntlet style. So it's sort of initial bit of form and ways to check it and get the kids to understand it. Then we would go on to skill, and then we would have some competitive skill element at the end then where we would have an outcome. So to see where they're all ranking within that class.
Yeah, okay. All right, next one, short game mastery at an early age. Like, where do you see, is this super important in your mind?
I mean, I know it's like, hey, I know there's this contrast of people saying you got to hit the ball a long way in a young age, and I get it, right? There's no doubt about it. But I've got kids, 70 pounds, 80 pounds. They're only so far they're going to hit it just because of the mass they have. They're great athletes. You just can't hit it that far. It's there's only so much you can create out of it. So at that point, you can do what you want to do to get the distance, but short game is the separator. The kids that I coach that are the most highest level, they all have amazing short games. They are great putters, great chippers. They've got all the shots around the greens. They can play bunker shots. They've got great distance wedge play. They're very precise with their approach play, but they might not always hit the ball as far as some kids, because you get 2 13-year-olds, they can be a head apart and 50, 60 pounds apart, can't they? And it's like, well, you're not going to hit it further than them. So you have to be able to have that mastery in the other end of the game where you can be a leveler. And then once they get the size, well, now you've got the dual prong attack, haven't you? You've got the power, and then you've got this great short game skill, which you can add into it.
Yeah. I can't add anything extra to that. That's exactly the motto I've always said for those little kids. Just be patient.
Yeah, it's going to come when
it's ready. Really good at chipping and putting and move on. So
for sure.
All right, competition play. There's going to be some kids that are playing, the highest level they can, and then some kids that are probably really nervous just playing a normal. It's a bit different here in Australia to the US. Like, we have regular competitions here. My course is like 5 days a week. They have competitions on, right?
Okay.
So,
wow. Yeah.
Like your Stablefords and all that, which you'd be probably used to back in the UK.
Yeah.
But over in America, it's a little bit different. But like, getting kids or getting people playing more competition. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they've got to compete, isn't it? I mean, the model's very different. Exactly what you said. In the UK, it's a bit more relaxed. You tend to compete within your golf club first of all, don't you? So you're in a junior section, then you play in your junior tournaments, and then you might play some senior tournaments. But a lot of it goes on within the club. And then you get to a certain age and you might start to play some, county events, and then eventually you might play some national events. But I feel it's a much more slower, more gradual progression. I mean, out here, these kids have played, I'm not even joking, they played like 400, 500 tournaments by the time they're 12 years old. It's insane. It's more than what I played in my probably 5 lifetimes.
Yeah.
I mean, is one better than the other? I mean, we still develop great players in Europe, and the same with Australia. Maybe sounds like more of a similar model to the UK. I think there's a fine line between overplaying, traveling lots at a young age. I feel is that FOMO in all sports in the US is incredibly competitive, and you feel like you should be doing what everyone else does. But there is just this more gradual progression that will come with time. I don't know if you listened to the podcast with Corey and Cam the other day on their podcast, and it was with Oberg, Weberg, whatever you want to call it. And basically what he was saying with him, he was a very late developer, just playing within his golf club till sort of 14, 15, and then all of a sudden had this big sort of playing more, competing more. So there's no exact way to do it. I do like kids to compete, but it doesn't need to be, they've got to play, 3 tournaments a week in the summer and constantly be traveling around America. It's a fine balance. Every kid is different.
Hey listeners, I just wanted to give a big shout out to one of our amazing partners, True Protein. They've been with me for a while now, and honestly, I can't speak highly enough about them. For years, I struggled to find a protein powder that didn't make me feel sick. Most brands would often make my stomach feel upset, and I'd just truly given up. But ever since I started using True Protein, it's completely changed. Their products make me feel great. I've never had that heavy or queasy feeling I used to get with the other brands. I'm absolutely obsessed with the choc peanut butter flavor that I've been putting in my protein shakes with a banana and some ice and some almond milk. Absolute game changer. It's become my pretty much everyday go-to. And also the other thing that I'm sort of having probably too often is their collagen hot chocolate. Every morning, I just mix it in with some hot water, and it's like 12 grams of protein for about 80 calories. So you can't go wrong. Plus, their protein bars are perfect for snacking on the course or during lessons. They keep me fueled without the crash. True Protein is an Aussie-made brand that uses clean, high-quality ingredients with no weird fillers or artificial junk. That's a huge deal for me because those fake sweeteners is what I've always struggled with, and they've all set me off. So with our partnership, you can get a $25 off your first order as a new customer. Just use the code TRUEYGP at checkout. That's TRUEYGP. I'm proud to partner with True Protein because they've genuinely made a difference for me, and I know they'll do the same for you. Are you seeing a lot of the kids that are playing, truckloads of events from 5, 6, 7 years old, they get over it by the time they're teenagers? Or is it...
Yeah.
I guess they would if they're losing a lot or they're not winning a lot. Golf, you're going to lose more than you win, right? But
for sure.
Do you ever see much of that?
Yeah, I mean, kids definitely burn out. I think they just go, I wouldn't say they naturally stop playing from what I've seen. From the kids that I've been working with, but certainly they have periods where they go stale just because they play a lot of golf. And also, like you just said, and you hit on a good point there, it's that understanding that, hey, you can't win every time. Now, when they're at that, say, under 9, 10, the good kids, they're like winning like every single week. It's they literally are winning 70, 80% of the tournaments they play into. So all of a sudden they get used to being like, oh, I play golf and I win, and that's what I expect. And then suddenly you get to 12, 13, 14, and the events get bigger and your pot gets bigger. And suddenly now you're not winning every event, you're winning every 7th or 8th event, or you're finishing 10th. And managing those expectations is some of the most difficult things. But we always use like an example of like Tiger Woods' win ratio. I mean, the guy was, like insane. I think he had like a 20% win rate, which is miles ahead of anyone else. And that's the greatest golfer, or one of the greatest golfers of all time, at least. So, if he's only winning 5 events, then we've got to manage our expectations, go play your best, but also understand that as it goes along, it gets a lot harder to win.
Yeah. All right. Next one. This is one that you were super keen on: purposeful practice habits.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big one. I think that's a separator, because the time you have with the coach, hopefully that's quality time. And we always try to guide our kids in a great way when they come for the sessions. But the time away from the coach, I find, is the most dangerous time, because, hey, what are they doing? Is there quality to what they're doing? Do they have a structure? Or is it just machine gunning balls in the range? Is there no engagement? Is it not enough play and too much practice? So trying to get that balance is really important. And for me, like, having a plan and turning up with a plan is a massive separator compared to what the majority of people are doing, which is just turning up and hitting balls and just hoping for the best. Now, repetition will help. We know that. But putting more quality into it and having more of a structure and ways to quantify your skill is definitely the separator. And I think that that's one of the big things that we are very big on within Altus is putting the quality into your practice. And the kids that do that, no doubt about it, are the ones that will pull away into the next level.
I want to talk about something, but the next topic that I was going to say was ownership of improvement.
Yeah.
And I think this is the biggest thing with practice, right? Like, they come, whether it's an adult, I said this to an adult last night, I'm showing you, and I'm standing here and I'm watching and making sure everything is correct. but I don't know what you're going to do between now and our next lesson,
You
because
know,
what I'm showing you is right and what I'm videoing and all the feedback tools I'm giving you, but you might be off by, let's just say it was your shoulder alignment and you go back to your shoulders being left. Well, that throws everything out and you've wasted 3 weeks of practice before our next session. So ownership of improvement, I had this down as a topic because I also think a lot of parents and kids go, well, it's Mark's job or it's Brent's job or it's the coach's job to make sure I get better. Well, we're guiding you and we're giving you all the right information, but someone has to own it. And it is not the parent and it is not the coach. It is the kid.
mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you've got to take accountability, and we talk about this a lot with our kids. Is we use a lot of resources. The Skillest resource for the online is amazing because I think that's accountability. I can prompt them. They can send me videos. We can get constant feedback. I can ensure they're doing it well. So no doubt about it, closing that gap between the sessions by having feedback that way certainly helps. It's a way of trying to create sort of more checkpoints,
Yeah.
which I think is huge. But I talked about this actually I talk about this daily, but particularly yesterday, this resonated because one kid I coach, he comes regular, comes back with the same issue the next week. And it takes 10, 15 minutes and we get him back into it. And I said to him about the last session, I said, look, are you filming your swing? Are you getting feedback? Because practice without feedback is a waste of time. He said, no, I don't film this. So why not? I said, you're 15. You've got a phone. You've got a tripod holder. You see a tripod holder. You think, why are you not filming? Oh, I don't get a chance. Da, 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 da. I said, well, look, you've got to do it. I said, because otherwise we're coming back with the same thing.
Yep.
I said, you need to get better at understanding, checking these things yourself. I said, you've got a great golf IQ. You know what to look for. I just showed you what I'm seeing and you told me what the issue is. So Can we do that? He comes back for the next lesson yesterday. The best I've seen him move. It was the same path that we left with. The ball flight was under control. I was like, tell me what you've done different. He said, I've been filming myself regularly. I was like, okay, there we go. We can move on. We're not. And he said to me, he's like, it was so cool. We didn't have to talk about the same thing. I was like, yeah, me too. I love not having to talk about the same thing. I want to move on to doing skills. But if you're not taking ownership of it, we're going to keep going around the same circles every time you turn up, which is crazy.
And for any kids that are listening or parents of kids, when Mark and I were juniors,
VHS.
I don't know if you ever had exactly. So I remember videoing myself and plugging it into my laptop to be able to watch it. I mean, I could watch it on the little, the flip out screen that it had, but it was everything right now. They are set up for success, basically. Like,
my gosh.
you can film your swing and it's 240 frames a second.
Man, honestly. So good.
Yep, exactly.
And you've got things like Skillest or Coach Now that we use that they can just put the stuff into.
Stop it, draw lines, double check.
And I think that's what my thing is. Like, what to do. We give you the homework, we give you the drills. It's all clear and concise within the app we send it to you. So it's not like you haven't got the information. We've sent you off with nothing. You've got all the tools. You've just, like you said, you've got to have the accountability and you've got to take control of it. Otherwise, you're holding yourself back in the long run.
Yep. Your improvement is going to take 10 times longer.
For sure.
Than what it could. So, all right. Supportive environment.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, isn't it? I mean, it brings, it takes an army, doesn't it, to bring up, a successful athlete. And, the coach is a huge part of it. The parents are a huge part of it. High school coaches are a big part of it. The people you hang around with are a big part of it. The people you play with. There's just so many different parts that have a big effect on how you perform. And I think if you speak to most of the elite level players, they'll talk about people who have been important in that journey, whether that was a coach who did their foundational stuff that set them up for the basis, or whether it was, a top level coach and when they got on tour, took them to the next level, their parents driving them around, and being supportive. Because like you said, you're going to lose more than you're going to win. And, that's tough to take when you're a kid, because they don't really understand. They just want to constantly win. And that's partly what makes them so good, is they expect a lot of themselves. So being there to support them and not being too hard on them when they have those bad weeks, they're human beings, they're growing, they're not going to be consistent all the time. So lots of things that have effects. So as a parent and as a coach, we've got to be there to support them. And I think that's just absolutely vital. I don't want to sort of be going in two-footed on these kids. We're there to support them. They know when they've had a bad week what it feels like for themselves, and for us as coaches and as parents, we've got to be the ones to lift them back up and help them get back to where they want to be and keep them motivated.
Your golf ball is the most technologically advanced, or it's not. Your golf ball is either the most consistent, or it's not. It's the most trusted, or it's not. The fact is, it's either Titleist, the best performing golf ball in the world, or it's not. Prove it for yourself. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. What will you play?
Just adding to that, like, support doesn't always have to come with, the credit card or the cash and paying for things. It's like, be their parent when you get in the car.
Without doubt.
Doesn't have to, you don't have to criticize on that car ride home. I think we all have heard that one, you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
Kids already had a shit day out on the golf course. The last thing they want to do is get grilled on what they did wrong on the way home. And, I mean, my 2 cents with that is, have the car ride home and maybe just sort of say, hey, have you self-evaluated to think what you could have done differently today versus just, pointing the finger saying you did this wrong, you did that wrong, that sort of stuff. So, all right, next point, mental toughness and resilience.
I suppose it's a little bit into what you said there, isn't it? I mean, I think as parents and coaches, we help develop that for them. Give them the tools to understand that, hey, this game is really hard and you're going to get bad breaks and things aren't always going to go your way. And in those situations, that's where, having that mental resilience is definitely the separator. Being able to recover from setbacks and get back out and practice and be motivated, and also just understand the good things that you did in those tournaments. And yeah, I mean, it's so many things that build that up over a period of time. I think some kids definitely, some players in general, not just kids, but, pros, some have naturally more of that. But doesn't mean the ones that don't have it can't learn to develop it and move that to the next level. You're trying to create sort of evidence in practice that would help them be able to pull on certain things in certain situations would be important as well. So when they're in those tough situations, being able to pull on old times where they pulled off a great shot when they were in a tough situation like that, that's important as well. Using affirmations is important, positive self-talk, not saying stupid crap out loud, basically, is a big part of it. Like a lot of self-talk with all players is terrible. And I was like, well, if this was someone else saying to you, it would be like abuse, but it's coming from you. It's even worse. So those things are all part that build that mental resilience. You just got to be careful what you say to yourself, because ultimately you're knocking yourself down when you're doing that. So catching yourself when you're saying those negative things and just trying to replace that with something more constructive.
Yeah, I always reference whether you are shit or you think you're shit, you're right. Like, cause if you constantly keep telling yourself you're poor at something, you're going to become bad at it, right? Like I mean, there are outliers where there are some really great players who just give themselves a spray every time they hit a shot, sort of thing. That maybe some people need that mentally inside their brain, but obviously, it sounds like with your group coaching programs that you have there, as the kids get a little bit older, you made a comment before, it's not necessarily around, the group training is not necessarily around them learning new skills. Is a lot more competitive practice to sort of put them under pressure so that when they go play a tournament, I always say this to my kids, I want your practice to be harder than the tournament. So like a chip shot, if you miss the green, just feels easy because you're normally competing against 6 other people and you're feeling all the pressure of different points or getting knocked out of our chipping comp type thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a key part of it. Is it has to be, the practice has to be challenging. If you can get in a peer group, well, that's amazing because you're constantly practicing under pressure and in a competitive environment. And ultimately, all those things do build up your resilience. The more you practice in a difficult situation where there is consequence, as much consequence you can create in a practice environment, there's no doubt about it. There's a downstream effect on the mental resilience when you create that on a consistent basis. The players that don't challenge themselves when they practice, it's too easy, or it's always like, okay, you can just come back and have another go. You're not really doing them a favor in the long run. There has to be some sort of toughness to your practice to really prepare you for the rigors of tournament golf.
Yep. No, I completely agree. All right, last little point before we wrap up here. Patience and long-term development.
Yeah, I mean, it's the journey to where you're trying to go. For example, if you've got a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and they want to play, varsity golf, or they want to play college golf, or they want to go on to be pros, it's a long way, isn't it? And I think you've got to be addicted to the process and get the player to really understand, like, hey, let's focus on the daily habits. Let's not try to set timelines. It's great to set goals. Goals are great. They keep us motivated. They make us want to go out and practice. I want to go win the Masters. All right, well, hopefully that's going to keep you motivated to go out there and practice. But that's not enough. The habits are the bits that really take you to that next level. And those habits take a long time, that compound effect, that patience, that resilience that just takes time. It can be 2 or 3 years of hard work sometimes before you see the big jumps. And sometimes you do something for 3 months and you change your habits and you get a big jump straight away. But there's no guarantee. But big thing we do with our kids is we have the habit trackers. So they have these sheets that they print out every week, and they have lots of different things on there. So it'd be like organize your practice, physical training, look after your sleep, compete. I mean, there's just like lots of different things on there, and there's like every single day's on there. And we get them to be like, right, every week you're going to bring along and you're going to be honest, you're going to tick off the things you did. And just do things you can, as much as you can do at the start. And then eventually over a period of time, you start to see more ticks every single week. Now, the kids that turn up with the more ticks every single week, over a period of time, they are the kids that go lights out, or they start playing well, they start winning tournaments, they start having big jumps. But it's just good for them to understand, like, hey, focus on the habits, the daily habits, and the rest will take care of itself. Don't get too focused on like the short term. It's a long-term development.
I remember, I had a student that was over in the US and he was playing college golf, and he just wasn't, a lot of kids when they go overseas, especially, I find kids that come from Australia and they go sort of anywhere north over the US, they get depressed because they go from
used to the sunshine.
Well, they got 365 days of golf over here, and then next minute, especially if they start in January, right? Which, a kid that I've currently working with, he's over there, and he is proper, he's playing TrackMan numbers at the moment.
Yeah,
this is bad. And I'm like, dude, he looked at he sent me his swing last night, and I'm like, tell me how your swing can't win a major, right?
Yeah,
Just tell me, like, it's pure. You need to just wait until the snow melts and just chill for a few more weeks, and, maybe just do some wedges in there or play the TrackMan combines and all that, rather than worrying about what your swing path is or your club face. And,
such a difficult situation.
I've had this kid years ago, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and he's like, I feel like I'm putting all this effort in for nothing. And I'm like, but how do you know that the daily actions that you're taking right now aren't for something in 6 years from now?
That's hard, hard to get the buy-in on that one, isn't it? Well, I talk about that all the time, the compound effect of, just what you're doing for a long period of time. But it's hard because when suddenly people change their habits and they're getting up and they're training and they're doing their practice and they're eating well and they're going to sleep, and then suddenly 3 months later they're sort of not quite seeing the progress they were hoping for. That's hard to say to them, hey, look, this might be 3 to 5 years until you really see the massive jumps. But if you keep doing it, there's no way this is not going to be successful.
Delayed gratification.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard when you're trying to tell a 13-year-old about it, because they've grown up in an era where they just pop their phone out and anything that they want is just
straight away.
Yeah.
So that's the world we live in, isn't it? It's like, we're all living that world as well. If I want something, I'll just click on it and it's here the next day.
Sorry, this is not a rant, but it's just a bit of a laugh, right? I'm 42, nearly 43. Like, as a kid, I had, like a little Asteroids game, or I had a Nintendo Game Boy or whatever, and maybe two, and you would just play that. Now my 6-year-old, he has an iPad, and we're pretty strict with iPad use, but he has this iPad, and anytime he wants to download a game, it comes to us and we have to approve it on our phone.
Yeah.
Right? The amount of times where he will say, can I have my iPad or whatever? And okay, you can have it for half an hour. and he'll download 6 or 7 different games in that half an hour because, that one's boring. That one's boring. And I'm like, this is not good for their mental development, right?
Yeah.
Just it's the same. Netflix, they get sick of a show. Whereas when we go on holidays, we actually like them to watch whatever kids shows come on the television because they've got to sit there and learn patience and go, well, you get what you get and don't get upset. That's kind of what we say to them, whatever show comes on next. But yeah, I think the world's very different now, and I guess maybe we need to learn to adapt to their world.
Yeah, look, it is what it is, and it's part of it. But it's hopefully trying to get them to understand that, hey, there's a difference between having this instant on-demand choice of whatever TV show you want to do compared to the reality of developing to a high level. And I use examples like, hey, look, say if I went in today and I wanted to go win Mr. Olympia and be a bodybuilder, that's not going to happen in a month. That's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen by 3 years. It's that long term. So certain things, they'd understand it, but in golf, it's almost like, well, I'm good. If I start doing a bit more, I should be seeing even more straight away. Yeah. And sometimes that happens, but sometimes it just, as you said, it's just a little bit delayed.
It's no different to a 20 handicap amateur coming for a lesson and wanting to be off scratch next week because you've had one 30-minute lesson with them. But Mark, thank you so much for coming on, mate. How can we spoke about this last time, but how can everyone follow you or find you online?
So I'm on Instagram under Elite Golf Coach. I'm on Skillist if anyone's looking for online coaching or support that side, and that's, again, search Mark Govier on that side of things. But yeah, YouTube as well. Don't do a lot on YouTube, but there's access to stuff there. Still lots of videos there that you can watch back and hopefully get some free tips.
All right, mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care. See ya.